The massive hangar of Starbase Alpha hummed with anticipation as Commander Isabella Torres stood before what the Galactic Council claimed was humanity's welcome gift. The vessel before her looked less like a starship and more like something salvaged from an intergalactic junkyard. Its hull was a patchwork of mismatched metals. Scoring marks crisscrossed its surface like ancient battle scars, and one of its nacelles hung at an angle that made her chief engineer wince visibly. "They can't be serious," muttered Chief Engineer Raj Patel, his dark eyes scanning the ship with a mixture of horror and fascination. "This isn't a gift, it's an insult." Commander Torres ran her hand along the ship's hull, feeling the irregular surface beneath her fingers. The metal was cold, but something about it resonated with an odd energy she couldn't quite place. "The Galactic Council thinks they're being clever, Raj. Humanity achieves FTL travel, and they're required by law to accept us into their ranks. So they give us this." The ship, dubbed the Phoenix's Grace by the Council, with what Torres suspected was deliberate irony, loomed above them like a mechanical ghost. Its previous name had been burned off the hull, leaving only scarred metal behind. "Well," said Lieutenant Kira Yamamoto, their tactical officer, crossing her arms as she studied the vessel, "at least they're not subtle about their contempt for us primitive humans." She kicked a piece of debris, sending it skittering across the hangar floor. The Arcturians practically sneered through their tentacles when they delivered it. Torres gathered her senior staff in what was supposedly the ship's main briefing room. The lighting flickered sporadically, and a persistent hum emanated from somewhere in the walls. Around the table sat the core team she'd handpicked for this mission. Raj Patel, whose engineering genius was matched only by his inability to back down from a challenge. Kira Yamamoto, whose tactical instincts had saved their previous ship more times than Torres could count. Dr. James Wilson, their lead scientist whose curiosity often bordered on reckless, and Navigation Officer Thomas O'Brien, whose ability to plot courses through impossible situations had become legendary within Earth's fleet. "They gave us this ship expecting us to fail," Torres began, her voice steady and determined. "The Council thinks we'll either limp back to Earth with our tails between our legs or blow ourselves up, trying to prove we belong among their ranks. I say we show them exactly what humanity does with scraps and impossibilities." Raj pulled up a holographic display of the ship's systems, which flickered and distorted like a bad transmission. "The good news is the basic structure is sound, despite appearances. The bad news is, well, everything else. The power core is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's not just damage, it's as if it was deliberately scrambled. The navigation systems appear to be calibrated for a form of space-time mathematics we haven't even theorized yet, and the weapons systems." He trailed off, shaking his head. "Are there weapons systems?" Kira asked, leaning forward. "There are systems," Raj replied with a wry smile. "Whether they're weapons or just very aggressive ways to make toast, I'm still figuring out." Dr. Wilson was already deep in his data pad, his eyes lighting up with that dangerous spark of scientific curiosity. "The power readings from the core are fascinating. They don't match any known energy signature in our database. It's as if the ship is operating on principles that defy our understanding of physics." "That's because it is," a voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Ambassador Chen Lai, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. She entered the room with the careful grace of a career diplomat, but her eyes held a fierce intelligence that had served humanity well in negotiations. "This ship," she continued, "was an experimental vessel, abandoned by the Proxima Collective after it produced unexpected results. The Council thought they were being clever, passing it off to us as a gift. What they don't realize is that they've just handed us exactly what we need." Torres raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "The Proxima Collective are thousands of years ahead of us technologically, but they're bound by their own understanding of what's possible. When this ship started exhibiting properties they couldn't explain, they abandoned it rather than risk their scientific paradigms. But humans," Chen smiled, "humans have a remarkable ability to work with the impossible." O'Brien, who had been quietly studying the navigation interfaces, spoke up. "So we've been given a ship that breaks the rules of physics by a species too afraid to figure out how it does it." "Precisely," Chen replied. "And we have 6 months before the Council expects a demonstration of our progress with their gift." Torres stood, looking at each member of her crew. "Then we have work to do. Raj, I want you and your engineering team to start breaking down every system on this ship. Document everything, especially the things that don't make sense. Dr. Wilson, focus on that power core. If it's breaking physics, I want to know how and why. Kira, map every inch of this ship's defensive capabilities, conventional or otherwise. O'Brien, see if you can make sense of the navigation systems." The crew dispersed to their tasks, energy and purpose replacing their initial skepticism. Torres remained in the briefing room with Ambassador Chen, both women looking out the viewport at the stars beyond. "They think they're testing us," Torres said quietly. "They are," Chen replied. "But they don't understand what humans do with tests. We don't just pass them, we rewrite them entirely." Over the next weeks, the Phoenix's grace became a hive of activity. Raj's engineering team swarmed through the ship's systems like determined ants, cataloging, analyzing, and gradually beginning to understand the bizarre logic behind its design. Dr. Wilson established a permanent research station around the power core, his team working in shifts to monitor its increasingly strange behavior. The first breakthrough came when they discovered that the ship's seemingly random power fluctuations weren't random at all. They were responses to the crew's presence. The vessel was adaptive, learning, its systems gradually aligning themselves with human thought patterns and expectations. "It's like," Raj explained during one late-night briefing, his hands gesturing excitedly. "The ship was built for a completely different way of thinking about space, time, and reality itself. The Proxima Collective couldn't work with it because they were trying to force it into their understanding of physics. But because we're coming at it fresh, with fewer preconceptions, we're teaching it to speak human," Torres finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Exactly. And it's teaching us too. Every system we unlock helps us understand a new principle of physics we never even imagined." As the days turned into weeks, the Phoenix's grace began to transform. Its hull, once a patchwork of metals, began to develop a peculiar sheen, the different materials gradually aligning into patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. The irregular hum in the walls resolved into something almost musical, a deep resonance that the crew swore they could feel in their bones. The ship was awakening, and with it, humanity's place in the galaxy was about to change forever. The Phoenix's Grace's engine room pulsed with an otherworldly glow as Chief Engineer Raj Patel stood before the quantum core, his reflection dancing across its crystalline surface. 2 months had passed since they'd received the ship, and what had started as a seemingly impossible task was evolving into something extraordinary. Log entry 47. He spoke into his recorder, dark circles under his eyes betraying countless sleepless nights. "The quantum core's resonance patterns have shifted again. It's not just responding to our presence anymore, it's anticipating our needs." Behind him, a holographic display showed energy patterns that would have made traditional physicists weep. The core's output had tripled in the past week alone, yet their instruments showed it was operating at merely 15% of its theoretical capacity. The door hissed open, and Commander Torres entered, followed by an unwelcome guest, High Observer Zixtal of the Galactic Council, their appointed supervisor. The alien's crystalline form caught the core's light, sending rainbow refractions across the walls. "Fascinating," Zixtal's translated voice hummed with barely concealed skepticism. "You appear to have prevented the ship from exploding. The Council will be surprised." Torres and Raj exchanged a knowing look. The Council had been sending observers with increasing frequency, each one expecting to find the humans had either abandoned the project or managed to destroy themselves. Instead, they found progress that defied explanation. "The core's quantum signature has stabilized," Raj explained, pulling up detailed diagnostics. We've discovered it operates on principles of quantum entanglement we hadn't even theorized before. The ship doesn't just travel through space. It negotiates with it. Zixtal's crystalline structure flickered, a sign of agitation in their species. Impossible. The Proxima Collective spent centuries attempting to decipher this vessel's operations. You cannot have succeeded where they failed. Maybe that was their problem, Lieutenant Yamamoto said as she entered, carrying fresh data from their latest systems test. They spent too long trying to decipher it instead of working with it. The tactical officer pulled up a new holographic display, showing the results of their weapons diagnostics. What they'd originally thought were damaged weapon systems had turned out to be something else entirely. A defense mechanism that didn't destroy attackers but rather redistributed probability itself around the ship. "Watch this," Kira said, playing a recording from their latest test. A training drone fired on the Phoenix's Grace, but instead of the shot hitting or being deflected, it simply never happened. The energy beam curved impossibly, following a path that physics insisted couldn't exist, before dissipating harmlessly into subspace. "The ship doesn't defend itself." Dr. Wilson's voice came from his research station near the core. "It rewrites the probability of being attacked in the first place." The scientist emerged from behind his instruments, his eyes bright with excitement. "It's not technology as we understand it. It's a framework for manipulating reality itself." Zixtal's translation matrix struggled to keep up with the concept. "This violates fundamental laws of causality. The Council will not accept." "The Council," Torres interrupted firmly, "gave us this ship. Whatever we discover about it is humanity's right to explore." As if in response to her words, the quantum core pulsed, sending a wave of energy through the ship that made everyone's hair stand on end. The lights flickered, and for a moment, the engine room seemed to exist in multiple places at once. "That's new," Raj muttered, rushing to his console. "The core's quantum field is expanding. It's responding to our defense of it." Dr. Wilson's instruments were going haywire. The quantum entanglement is spreading throughout the ship's structure. The hull plating, the internal systems, even the air recyclers. Everything's becoming quantum-linked. Zixtal backed away from the core, their crystalline form vibrating with alarm. This level of quantum integration is forbidden. It was precisely this behavior that caused the Proxima Collective to abandon the project. "Forbidden?" Kira scoffed. "Or just beyond your understanding?" Torres moved closer to the core, watching as patterns of light danced across its surface, like conscious thought made visible. "Mr. O'Brien," she called over the comm, "what's the status of our navigation systems?" The navigator's voice came back excited. "Commander, you won't believe this. The quantum integration is affecting our spatial awareness. I'm seeing flight paths that shouldn't exist, shortcuts through spacetime that break every rule in the book. The ship's not just awakening," Dr. Wilson breathed, staring at his readings. "It's evolving, and it's taking us with it." Raj's console suddenly lit up with new data. "Commander, I'm detecting changes in the ship's molecular structure. The hull isn't just repairing itself anymore. It's restructuring on a quantum level. The materials are becoming something else." Torres turned to Zixtal, who was now backing toward the door. "You can tell the Council that their gift is being put to good use, though I suspect that's not what they wanted to hear." The observer departed hastily, leaving the human crew to witness their ship's transformation. The engine room thrummed with power, the quantum core's glow intensifying until it filled the chamber with otherworldly light. "Raj," Torres said quietly, "what exactly are we dealing with here?" The engineer shook his head, wonder and confusion mooring on his face. "Something that's been waiting for the right crew, I think. The Proxima Collective tried to control it, to bend it to their understanding of physics. We're doing the opposite. We're letting it show us what's possible." Dr. Wilson's voice was almost reverent as he studied the latest readings. "The quantum field is stabilizing, but at a level of complexity that shouldn't be possible. It's as if the ship is creating its own laws of physics. Commander, O'Brien's voice came over the comm again. You need to see this. The navigation system. It's showing us paths to places that don't exist in any of our star charts. Places that might not exist in our universe at all. Torres looked at her crew, seeing the same mix of excitement and apprehension on their faces that she felt herself. They had passed the point of no return. The Phoenix's Grace wasn't just a ship anymore. It was becoming something that would redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. Well, she said with a slight smile, I believe we're about to give the Council something to really worry about. The Phoenix's Grace shuddered as reality itself seemed to bend around it. Through the bridge viewport, the stars stretched and twisted like paint on a cosmic canvas. Commander Torres gripped her chair as the ship performed its most ambitious test yet. Status report, she called out, her voice steady despite the reality-bending forces at work around them. Quantum core stability at 97%, Raj reported from engineering. The ship's handling the breach better than we expected. It's almost like it's enjoying this. Dr. Wilson's voice crackled over the comm, excitement barely contained. The quantum field is maintaining coherence. We're actually doing it. We're creating a controlled reality distortion. The test had been weeks in preparation. After discovering the ship's ability to manipulate quantum probability, they had pushed further, exploring the limits of what their unusual vessel could actually do. The results had exceeded their wildest expectations. The viewport showed something that human eyes were never meant to process, a space between spaces, where the normal rules of physics took a polite step backwards and let chaos take the wheel. Yet within this impossibility, the Phoenix's Grace moved with graceful purpose. Navigation confirms, O'Brien called out, his hands dancing over controls that now responded to thought as much as touch. We're tracking through the breach. Distance covered. This can't be right. He double-checked his readings. We've just traversed 300 light-years in under 5 minutes. Torres allowed herself a small smile. What had started as an insult, a broken ship given to humanity as a backhanded welcome gift, had become something that would revolutionize space travel itself. The ship emerged from the breach into normal space, the stars settling back into their familiar patterns. Before them loomed the Horsehead Nebula, its vast clouds of gas and dust forming the distinctive shape that had captured human imagination for centuries. Position confirmed, O'Brien reported. We're exactly where we aim to be. A journey that would have taken conventional ships years, and we did it in minutes. Lieutenant Yamamoto's tactical display suddenly lit up with multiple signals. Commander, we've got company. 3 Arcturian heavy cruisers on an intercept course. They're powering weapons. Torres straightened in her chair. The Arcturians were among the most militant species in the Galactic Council, and they'd been particularly vocal about their distrust of humanity. Looks like we've got an audience for our test run. Defensive systems. Already ahead of you, Kira replied with a grin. The quantum probability field is active. Their weapons literally cannot hit us. The mathematics won't allow it. The Arcturian ships drew closer, their aggressive intent clear. The lead vessel opened a communication channel, and a harsh, translated voice filled the bridge. Human vessel, you are in violation of Council space and operating prohibited technology. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Torres exchanged looks with her crew before responding. Arcturian vessels, this is Commander Torres of the Phoenix's Grace. We are operating under Council authorization with our assigned vessel. Your interference is neither required nor welcome. The response came in the form of weapons fire, or at least an attempt at weapons fire. As the Arcturian ships launched their attack, reality around the Phoenix's Grace seemed to ripple. The energy beams curved impossibly, following paths that defied physics before dissipating harmlessly into space. They're trying to lock us down with a gravitational tether, Kira reported, almost sounding amused. The ship's quantum field is, well, it's basically telling gravity no thank you and suggesting it look elsewhere. From engineering, Raj's voice held a note of wonder. Commander, the quantum core is responding to the attack in ways we hadn't anticipated. It's not just defending us, it's learning from each attempt they make. Dr. Wilson cut in, his words tumbling over each other in excitement. The ship's consciousness is evolving exponentially. Each interaction with conventional physics helps it develop new ways to manipulate reality. It's like watching a child learn, but the child is a vessel that can bend space-time. The Arcturian ships pressed their attack, bringing more weapons to bear. Energy beams, gravitational pulses, and quantum torpedoes. All of them failed to touch the Phoenix's grace, reality itself conspiring to protect the vessel. "They're surrounding us," O'Brien reported. "Standard tactical doctrine. They're trying to box us in." Torres leaned forward in her chair. "Are they now?" "Mr. O'Brien, let's show them why that's not going to work. Execute Maneuver Omega." O'Brien's fingers flew over his console, but it was more ceremony than necessity now. The ship responded to their intentions as much as their commands. The Phoenix's grace seemed to blur, existing in multiple locations simultaneously before settling into a position behind the Arcturian fleet. "How?" The Arcturian commander's voice held something new now. "Fear." That movement violated every known law of physics. "That's rather the point," Torres replied calmly. "Stand down your vessels. Whatever you think you know about this ship, about humanity, you're working with outdated information." The Arcturian ships held their position, weapons still armed but no longer firing. On the bridge of the Phoenix's grace, Dr. Wilson's voice came through filled with awe. "Commander, you need to see these readings. The quantum core's latest evolution. It's not just bending reality anymore. In response to the attack, it started generating localized pockets of alternative physics. It's literally creating spaces where our laws of reality don't apply." Raj added, "The ship's not just adapting to us anymore. It's actively anticipating our needs, creating new possibilities faster than we can imagine them." The Proxima Collective didn't abandon this vessel because it was dangerous. They abandoned it because it was beyond their ability to even comprehend. Torres watched the Arcturian ships through the viewport, knowing this confrontation would mark a turning point. Humanity had been given a cast-off, a joke, a vessel that was supposed to humble them. Instead, they had embraced its strangeness, learned its secrets, and turned it into something that would forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. "Send a message to Earth Command," she ordered. Tell them the Phoenix's grace is everything its name suggests, and we're just getting started." The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with barely contained chaos. Holographic displays showed the Phoenix's grace's impossible feat, its dance through reality that had left 3 Arcturian warships helpless. The ship's quantum signature flickered across their sensors like a cosmic contradiction. "This has gone far enough." Supreme Counselor Vexthor's crystalline form pulsed with anger, sending prismatic patterns across the chamber walls. The humans were supposed to fail. The vessel was designed to humble them. Not this. Ambassador Chen Lai stood calmly before the council, her diplomatic mask firmly in place despite her inner satisfaction. "The council gifted us with this vessel in accordance with membership protocols. How we choose to develop it is our right." The chamber erupted in overlapping protests. Representatives from a dozen species argued in their native tongues, their translation matrices struggling to keep up with the cacophony of outrage and fear. Meanwhile, aboard the Phoenix's grace, Commander Torres and her crew were making another breakthrough. The ship's quantum core had begun revealing secrets that went far beyond simple space travel. "It's like finding out you've been reading a book upside down," Dr. Wilson explained, his hands moving through the holographic display of the ship's latest scan. "We thought the quantum core was the ship's heart, but it's more like a key." Raj nodded, dark eyes reflecting the shimmer of quantum equations that now filled the engine room. The Proxima Collective built this ship as a prototype for something bigger, but they were so focused on controlling it that they never saw its true purpose. The display showed the Phoenix's grace's structure, but not as they'd ever seen it before. The quantum field had revealed layers of reality surrounding the ship, dimensions folded within dimensions like an origami of existence itself. Each layer represents a different set of physical laws. Dr. Wilson continued. The ship doesn't just break the rules. It can choose which rules apply. And now it's teaching us how to do the same. Lieutenant Yamamoto entered the engine room, her usual confident stride betraying a hint of urgency. You'll want to see this. The council's called an emergency session. They're voting on whether to classify our ship as a violation of natural law. Torres allowed herself a small laugh. Natural law. We passed that boundary weeks ago. She turned to her crew. How close are we to understanding what this ship can really do? Before anyone could answer, the quantum core pulsed with unprecedented energy. The ship's internal displays flickered, then stabilized to show something entirely new. A map, but not of normal space. It showed connections between realities, paths through dimensions that shouldn't exist. It's showing us the way home, O'Brien whispered from his station. Not to Earth, to where it came from. The map revealed a location far beyond the edges of known space, in a region the Council had declared permanently quarantined centuries ago. The reason for the quarantine became suddenly, dramatically clear. The Proxima Collective didn't build this ship, Dr. Wilson said, his voice filled with awe. They found it, and when they couldn't control it, they tried to hide it. That's why they gave it to us. They thought we'd destroy ourselves trying to understand it. Back in the council chamber, the debate had reached a fever pitch. The humans must surrender the vessel, demanded the Arcturian High Commander, still smarting from his fleet's humiliation. They cannot be trusted with such power. Power. Ambassador Chen's voice cut through the chaos. You gave us a mystery, expecting us to run from it. Instead, we embraced it. The Phoenix's Grace isn't just a ship. It's a teacher, showing us what's possible when we stop trying to control the unknown and learn to work with it instead. The chamber's displays suddenly flickered, showing new readings from the quarantine zone. Energy signatures identical to the Phoenix's Grace were appearing, awakening after centuries of dormancy. They're calling to each other, Raj realized, watching the signals strengthen. Our ship wasn't just showing us how to bend reality. It was waiting for us to be ready for what's out there. Torres stood on her bridge, watching the quantum map unfold before her. The ship hummed with anticipation, its systems aligned perfectly for perhaps the first time since its discovery. The Council didn't make a mistake giving us this ship, she said to her crew. The ship chose us. The Proxima Collective tried to master it, to bend it to their will. We did something they never considered. We listened to it. The Phoenix's Grace's sensors detected Council ships moving to intercept them, no doubt ordered to prevent them from reaching the quarantine zone. But they were too late. The quantum core pulsed with newfound purpose, reality bending around the ship like light through a prism. They're going to try to stop us, Kira noted, watching the approaching vessels. Let them try, Torres replied. Mr. O'Brien, plot a course to those coordinates. It's time we learned what this ship has been preparing us for. The quantum field expanded, enveloping the ship in a cocoon of altered physics. In the engine room, Dr. Wilson's instruments recorded something unprecedented. The ship wasn't just bending reality anymore. It was weaving it, creating new patterns in the fabric of existence itself. Commander, Raj called from engineering. Whatever the ship is becoming, whatever it's trying to show us, this is just the beginning. Torres watched as space itself seemed to part before them, revealing corridors of light that defied description. The Phoenix's Grace moved forward, not just as a ship now, but as a key unlocking doors that had been sealed since the dawn of time. Behind them, the Council fleet approached, weapons charged. Before them lay a mystery that could reshape humanity's understanding of the universe. And around them, reality itself held its breath, waiting to see what this crew, these humans who had learned to dance with impossibility, would do next. The Phoenix's Grace hung suspended at the edge of known space, its quantum field rippling with colors that human eyes had never seen before. Behind them, the Council fleet maintained their pursuit, their weapons charged but useless against the ship's reality-bending defenses. Ahead lay the quarantine zone, where ancient secrets waited to be unveiled. Final warning, Phoenix's Grace. The Council Admiral's voice crackled through the comm. You are approaching a restricted sector. Return to Council space immediately or face obliteration. Commander Torres stood on her bridge, watching as reality itself seemed to pulse with anticipation. You still think that's possible, Admiral? To obliterate something that can rewrite the rules of existence? The quantum core surged with power, and Dr. Wilson's voice came through filled with wonder. Commander, the ship's quantum field is evolving. It's not just bending reality anymore. It's creating new forms of it. The quarantine zone barrier loomed before them, a wall of distorted space-time that had kept the galaxy's greatest secret hidden for millennia. But as the Phoenix's Grace approached, something remarkable happened. The barrier began to respond, quantum patterns matching and harmonizing with their ship's signature. It recognizes us, Raj breathed from engineering. No, it recognizes what we've become, what we've learned. The barrier parted like a curtain of light, revealing what lay beyond. The crew gasped collectively at the sight. Suspended in space were hundreds of ships, each bearing the same quantum signature as the Phoenix's Grace. They hung dormant, waiting, their forms defying conventional geometry. They're all keys, Dr. Wilson realized, his instruments struggling to process the readings. The Proxima Collective didn't just find one ship, they found an entire fleet. But they could never activate them because they tried to control them instead of understanding them. Torres finished. Each ship was waiting for a crew that could see beyond the limits of their own physics. The Council fleet had halted at the edge of the quarantine zone, their sensors overwhelmed by the power emanating from the ancient vessels. On the Council's command channel, panic was setting in. The humans have accessed the precursor fleet, one voice cried. The prophecy. Silence. Supreme Counselor Vexthor commanded, but it was too late. The word had been spoken. Ambassador Chen, still standing in the council chamber, smiled slowly. Prophecy. I believe you owe us an explanation, counselors. The chamber erupted in chaos as ancient secrets spilled forth. The quarantine zone had never been about containing danger. It was about controlling access to power. The precursors, a species that had transcended conventional physics, had left their fleet as a test. Only a civilization that could move beyond the need to dominate reality itself would be able to awaken their legacy. Aboard the Phoenix's Grace, the quantum core pulsed with new purpose. The ship's consciousness, which had been gradually teaching them to understand new forms of reality, now opened itself fully to the crew. It's beautiful, O'Brien whispered, tears in his eyes as he saw the navigation paths unfold, not just through space, but through possibility itself. They weren't just ships, they were seeds, planted throughout the galaxy, waiting for species ready to evolve beyond their limitations. Lieutenant Yamamoto's tactical display showed something unprecedented. The quantum fields are linking, creating a network across the entire fleet. They're not just ships, they're nodes in a vast web of reality manipulation. In the council chamber, Ambassador Chen faced the assembled representatives. You gave us what you thought was garbage. A failed experiment too dangerous to keep. You expected us to destroy ourselves trying to master it. Instead, we learned from it. We grew with it. And now, she gestured to the displays showing the awakening fleet. Now we've proven ourselves worthy of the legacy you've been too afraid to claim. The Phoenix's Grace moved deeper into the fleet, and one by one, the ancient vessels began to awaken. Each one resonated with the quantum signature that humanity had learned to nurture and understand. The ships weren't weapons or tools of domination. They were teachers, guides to a higher understanding of existence itself. The precursors didn't leave these ships as a prize to be won. Torres announced, her voice carrying to both her crew and the council. They left them as an invitation to join them in understanding the true nature of reality, not as something to be controlled, but as something to be danced with. The quantum core pulsed one final time, and the crew of the Phoenix's Grace received the precursor's full message. Images flooded their minds, not of conquest or power, but of exploration, of discovery, of realities beyond their wildest dreams. The ships weren't meant to make them masters of the universe. They were meant to make them students of it. "Commander," Raj called out, his voice thick with emotion. "The other ships, they're offering to bond with human crews. They want us to learn, to grow, to understand." Torres looked out at the fleet, humanity's future unfolding before them. "Send word to Earth. Tell them we found our place in the universe, and it's greater than anyone could have imagined." The Council fleet began to withdraw, their weapons powered down, their threats forgotten. They had witnessed the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy, not the rise of a conquering power, but the emergence of a species worthy of the precursor's legacy. The Phoenix's Grace hung among its sister ships, no longer the cast-off vessel meant to humble humanity, but the key that had unlocked their true potential. Its quantum core hummed with the music of reality itself, a symphony of possibility that humanity was finally ready to join. "What now?" O'Brien asked, his hands hovering over controls that could take them anywhere, or anyone they could imagine. Commander Torres smiled, looking out at the fleet that would change everything. Now we learn. We explore. We grow." The Council thought they were testing us, but the real test was whether we could move beyond the need to dominate and control. They gave us a broken ship, expecting us to break ourselves trying to master it. Instead, we learned to listen, to adapt, to dance with the impossible. The Phoenix's Grace's quantum field pulsed one final time, a beacon of hope and possibility in the darkness of space. Humanity had been given a joke, a cast-off, a trap disguised as a gift. They had transformed it into a key that unlocked not just the secrets of the universe, but their own potential to grow beyond their limitations. And somewhere, in dimensions beyond normal space and time, the precursors smiled, knowing their legacy had finally found its worthy inheritors.